Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, I'm Atarah, and in today's video we're going to be doing a brow tutorial. So I'll be using my Anastasia Beverlyhills Dipbrow in the shade Ebony. And I do sometimes switch up how I do my brows, but this is how I'm doing them at the minute. So I'll be using the Anastasia 7B brow brush, which has this little spoolie on the end, so you can use it to brush up your brows. So we've zoomed right in and I'm just brushing my brow hairs upwards to start off with. I don't have any products in my brows at the minute. So now I'm going to dip into my brow pomade with my brush, and I'm actually going to use the lid of the brow pomade just to take off the excess product, because I don't want too much product on my brush when I'm going onto my brows, and I can always use this like throughout to dip back in whenever I need more product. So I always start on the bottom line first, starting quarter of the way in and then slowly drawing the line going outwards. So I just do small strokes so that I don't make any mistakes. Then going into the top line of my brow, again starting quarter of the way in, doing small strokes, going along until I get right till the end of my brow. So you can see that so far I've drawn the two lines, one at the bottom and one at the top. Now I'm going to go into the front of my brow and I'm going to just do small strokes going upwards. So these are meant to look like hair strokes, so it makes it look a lot more natural, instead of having those sharp lines starting too far in. And I just add as many strokes as I want to make it full. You just obviously do this to however you want it to look. Now I'm going to brush my hairs downwards and I'm going to start to fill in where there's any gaps so that my brows look a lot fuller and darker. And as I'm filling in my brows, notice that I don't go all the way to the start of where I started my brows. I just go like where I started that line, quarter of the way in, all the way to the end, because I want the front part of it to look as natural as possible. Then I'm just brushing my brow hairs back upwards. So now for the fun part, where if you've messed up you can correct it with concealer. So I'm going in with a slightly lighter shade concealer and I'm just going along my brow line just to neaten it up and make it look a lot more clean and sharp. I do usually do my brows before the rest of my makeup, but this time around I just wanted to try it after I've done the rest of my makeup and see how it goes. And also I wanted to film a tutorial for you guys on my brows, because I'm always getting questions on how I do my brows and when I'm going to do a brow tutorial. And next I'm just going to take my finger, or you can use a brush, just to blend out that concealer. Obviously, because I already have eyeshadow on, usually I will be doing this as my first step, so I won't have any eyeshadow on, so I can blend it right down onto my lid. But this time I need to be a lot more careful because I've already got makeup on. So now I'm going along the top line again with concealer. Usually I would, for my top line, I'd just use my foundation shade or a concealer shade that's very similar to my skin tone and then blend that out. But this time I went with the lighter concealer shade that I used underneath as well, but I'll still blend it out. And if you feel like you've made any mistakes or you've brought the concealer down too far, just go back in with your brow product and neaten up the line, and you can just go back and forth between the two until you're happy with it. Then you see I'm just taking my finger and blending out the concealer so that there's no harsh lines and it's all smooth and blended. And then we're going to do exactly the same on the other brow. So starting off at the bottom, quarter of the way in, doing small strokes for that bottom brow line all the way till the end. And obviously everyone's brow shape is different, so you just do the shape you want your brows to be. I kind of follow the natural shape of my brows. I do tweeze my brows to a certain shape to make them a bit neater, but yeah, I'll usually just kind of follow that shape and then obviously kind of tweak it or change it. And then going in on the top line, quarter of the way in, small strokes, take your time with it, and then join it up to the bottom line as you go towards the end. And it doesn't matter if you make a little bit of mistakes or if the lines aren't as sharp as you want them, because that's where the concealer step will come in, where you can really clean it up with the concealer. And I constantly like look back at my other brow just to compare and make sure they're as similar as possible, or as similar as I can get them. Of course they're not going to be exactly the same, but I try and make them as much as I can look similar. And now I'm just going to fill in any gaps in my brows like I did on the other brow, just to make them look a lot more fuller and darker. But I usually mainly focus on the outer edge going in towards the middle. I don't really fill them in too much towards the front, because I want that front part to look more natural as possible, especially when I do those like hair strokes going upwards. So now I've just brushed down my brow to see where there are gaps, and again just filling in any gaps. So I'm just going to show you on this brow, if you don't have as full brows or your brows are quite thin, you can bring that line all the way towards the front just to act as a guide. If you don't naturally have like full brows, or if your brow hairs are quite thin or short or fine. So I'm just bringing those lines right in really lightly just to act as a guide, and then I'm going to start drawing my brow hairs upwards so it looks a bit more natural. So you can still do this method if you didn't want to do the first method that I did, and it will still work just as well. So you can just see I'm just going back and forth, filling in any gaps and brushing my hairs upwards. Then again, taking that concealer and taking my time with it, and I'm just using a flat eyeshadow brush, and I've just coated it with concealer, and I'm just taking my time really carving out the brows to make sure they look really sharp and neat and flawless. And I don't know about you guys, but I find using a brow pomade so much more easier compared to using like a brow powder or a brow gel or a brow pencil. I don't know if that's just because I'm used to the pomade, but I find I have more control over it, especially when I'm wanting to do those like small strokes towards the front of my brow. I get a lot more control and precision with the pomade and the brush than I do with like a brow pencil or a brow powder. But let me know in the comments what kind of brow products you guys use or prefer. So once I'm happy with the concealer placement, I'm just going to use my finger and gently blend that in so it doesn't interfere with my eyeshadow. Then we're going to clean up that top line so the brows are looking extra sharp and neat. And again, just take your time with it. The more you do your brows, the more you'll get used to it, and it will become easier and easier. You just need to figure out what works best for you. So you can see I slightly went a bit too low with the concealer, like interrupting that brow line that I drew. But this is fine if you want to make your brows a bit smaller, but if you don't, you just go back in with the brow product to correct that. And then I'm just taking my finger to blend out that top line so that it isn't too harsh. And that is how I do my brows. So I hope this tutorial was easy for you guys to follow. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, I do usually slightly change my brow routine, but this is how I do them at the minute. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and I'll make sure I answer you guys. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Turn on your notifications so you don't miss whenever I post a new video. I also do eyeshadow looks and makeup tutorials. And let me know what you think of this video, or if you want me to do a more in-depth brow routine. And that is it for today. Bye guys.